Hey everyone, happy end of week and welcome into our latest TDR Weekly Recap presented by Dutchie. I'm your host, Shad Dales. A lot to cover this week, from Florida politics and Wisconsin's medical cannabis breakthrough to new data showing how marijuana access could actually cut opioid use across America. This is telling. We'll also get into California's veto on medical cannabis delivery, Verano's hardware play, and even Target testing THC drinks in Minnesota. So lots to cover here this week, as it's yet another busy week in cannabis. So let's get into our latest TDR Weekly Recap presented by Dutchie. But first, a word from Morgan & Morgan. Hey everyone, there's a reason smart investors celebrate when their portfolio jumps 40% in a year, just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm. Think about it. When you're investing, you want the right team in your corner. The same is true if you're injured in dealing with an insurance company. And that is where Morgan & Morgan comes into the equation. Why? Well, they've got more than 1,000 attorneys and over 100 offices nationwide, and they've been fighting for people for over 35 years. And their track record is hard to ignore. Let me explain a little bit further. Case in point, in Florida, a client was offered $350,000, but walked away with $12 million. In Pennsylvania, another client, they turned $650,000 offer into $26 million. That's a 40x return. So in total, Morgan & Morgan, they've recovered more than $25 billion for over 500,000 clients. So really, when you hire him, it's like bringing in a legal army that has your back. Because if you're injured due to someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. And let's be honest, not all law firms are created equal. But with Morgan & Morgan, their fee is free unless they win. You can start your claim right now by clicking the link in the description below or by scanning this QR code on your screen with your phone. At the end of the day, if you want what you deserve, make sure you go in with the right team by contacting Morgan & Morgan today. Now, let's get back to the rest of our video. All right, let's get into this week's weekly recap, and we'll first begin down in Florida, where Governor Ron DeSantis has publicly admitted that cannabis legalization is popular among voters, even though he still opposes it. So it's a rare acknowledgement from a sitting Republican governor who's repeatedly said he wants to keep Florida a drug-free state. So the admission came during a recent town hall where DeSantis conceded that legalization polls well with voters, but he said he doesn't believe it's good for the state, even though there's a lot of people that want it. So it's an interesting contrast given the numbers. Florida's Smart and Save campaign has already raised over $25 million, with nearly all of it coming from Trulieve, the state's largest cannabis operator. The campaign is now aiming for the November 2026 ballot, and so far, polling suggests that public opinion is there, but politics just aren't. So if it passes, adults 21 and older could possess up to 2 ounces of marijuana, and the initial rollout would run through existing medical marijuana treatment centers, giving companies like Trulieve a massive head start, something that DeSantis, it's become personal, let's just say there. So while DeSantis remains opposed, it's clear Florida voters may force his hand. Is he getting ahead of this? Found it interesting, the timing of it all. All right, let's now move to Wisconsin, and after years of political stalemate, Wisconsin might finally have a real medical cannabis bill, though it is a cautious one. Senate President Mary Felskowski and Senator Patrick Testin, both Republicans, they introduced a new proposal this week that would legalize medical marijuana for patients with serious conditions like cancer, PTSD, epilepsy, and multiple sclerosis. But here's the catch: no smokable flower and no home grows. So patients could only use non-smokable forms like oils, tinctures, edibles, and capsules. Every dispensary would also be required to have a pharmacist on site to advise patients on dosing. So this would create a medical cannabis office inside the Department of Health Services to manage patients and dispensaries, while the Department of Agriculture would oversee cultivation and testing. So politically, though, it's an uphill climb. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos has already called the proposal too broad, pushing instead for a state-run dispensary model that has little private sector involvement. This is a stance that's killed past efforts. And despite 2/3 of Wisconsin voters supporting legalization, the legislature remains gridlocked. Next week's Senate hearing will show whether the state is finally ready to move forward or still stuck in neutral. Can you imagine being in Wisconsin right now and dealing with this? Like, come on, let's modern some laws here. Next up, a major new study from the University of Georgia and University of Colorado. They found that states with medical marijuana laws saw opioid prescriptions drop by 16% on average, Hello, Sam. And in some groups, more than 20%. So researchers analyzed data from over 15 million insured Americans between 2007 and 2020, comparing opioid use before and after medical cannabis legalization. So the results, clearly, they were remarkably consistent. When cannabis access expanded and opioid dependence declined. This is information that needs to be presented to the administration. And check this out as well. The steepest drops were among cancer patients and Black patients without cancer, both groups that have historically faced higher opioid risks. So the study also showed a rise in NSAID use, safer over-the-counter pain relievers, suggesting many patients are switching to cannabis or non-opioid alternatives for pain management. So the authors, they put it simply, medical cannabis laws are an effective policy tool for reducing opioid use and promoting safer pain management. Do I need to repeat that? So as the U.S. inches closer to federal rescheduling, this data is going to be huge. So why is it important? Because it shows that cannabis isn't a political issue anymore. It's a healthcare solution here and has measurable outcomes. So as I mentioned before, this is data that needs to be presented to the administration and will definitely help when they make a ruling, hopefully soon, towards rescheduling. All right, next up, let's go to the business side. In Verano Holdings, they just made a big move into hardware with the launch of HYPHEN. It's an all-in-one vape pod system that combines high-end design with modular flexibility. Okay, what is this? So here's what it is. The system features a rechargeable battery, multiple pod sizes, 3 temperature settings, a preheat function, and even an NFC chip that lets consumers tap their phone for product info and promotions. So the rollout, it started back on October 18th across Arizona, Illinois, Maryland, and New Jersey, with expansion coming to Florida, Nevada, Ohio, and PA. Their chief marketing officer, David Spreckman, called it the intersection of simplicity and innovation. So the bottom line here, HYPHEN is Verano's bid to own the premium vape category, pairing their top oil brands with a frictionless tech-forward device. It's also another signal that cannabis hardware is becoming just as competitive as flower itself. Does that surprise you? Well, it shouldn't right now. Next up, let's move west. Governor Gavin Newsom of California, he vetoed a bill that would have allowed select micro businesses in California to ship medical marijuana directly to patients. Why? Well, the bill, which is led by Assembly Member Patrick Aarons, was designed to help homebound and rural patients who can't easily reach dispensaries. Okay, this makes sense. So it would have created a 3-year pilot program under the state's track and trace system with strict documentation and signature requirements. So why didn't this happen? Newman said the idea was good, but the logistics were not, claiming it would overburden regulators and require costly software overhauls for just 2 eligible businesses. Advocates clearly saw this veto disappointing, but not expected. It highlights California's ongoing identity crisis, balancing its legacy with its recreational economics. As dispensaries focus more on high-end margin adult use products, patients continue to lose access to medical formulations, and for now, Newsom says he's open to working on better solutions, but the message to patients is clear: not yet. And we always hate that not yet term, do we not? All right, now for our next one. This raised eyebrows. Target is now quietly selling TH-infused beverages in select Minnesota stores, marking the first time a major national retailer has entered the hemp THC category. I don't know about this. Brands like Can, Wild, Trail Magic, Wink, and Surly are all part of the test, and each beverage contains up to 5 milligrams of THC per serving, well within Minnesota's low-dose hemp law. It's a small rollout, it's about 10 stores, but let's face it, it's historic. For hemp producers, it's proof that the regulation works. If Target can do it safely in Minnesota, expect Walmart, Costco, even Kroger to start watching this closely. Next up, more company news. Avant Brands have posted its 8th straight quarter of positive EBITDA, with revenue up 13% and domestic wholesale surging 307% year over year, proof that craft cannabis can scale profitably. Also, Curaleaf expanded its revolving credit facility to $100 million, signaling more institutional confidence entering the cannabis lending space right now. And Planet 13, they opened up a new dispensary in DeLand, Florida, expanding its footprint near Stetson University. And AYR Wellness is moving into the next stage of its restructuring plan with a public asset auction now, which is scheduled for November 10th. man, very sad to see what happened to AYR Wellness. Over in New York, regulators reaffirmed that local towns can't override state law by blocking cannabis businesses, calling those local bans unreasonably impracticable. That ruling strengthens protections for licensed operators statewide. And over on Capitol Hill, Senator Thom Tillis drew backlash from the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians after questioning their cannabis operations in North Carolina, prompting tribal leaders to remind Washington that tribal sovereignty applies to cannabis too. So some friction going on right now between Senator Thom Tillis and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. Too bad Senator Thomas is on his way out the door. He's been a very big advocate for the cannabis industry. We'll see what happens in North Carolina, but it's great to see him providing feedback to Attorney General Pam Bondi a week and a half ago about how we need some direction from the federal government. It's time. We need more senators like that, so hopefully it does come to fruition. That's it for this week's weekly recap. A lot what we just undressed. Hopefully you got a lot of great feedback based off of that, so leave some comments below and let us know what caught your eye this week. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to give it a like, smash on that bell for all notifications, and greatly appreciated once again if you could always subscribe to us here at TDR. One last thing, as I say each week, make sure to scan this QR code to become a daily Baked In newsletter subscriber. It's a newsletter delivered to your mailbox weekdays, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So this whole weekly recap I just gave you, this is the information that's shared with you on a weekly basis by scanning this QR code and becoming a daily Baked In newsletter subscriber. That's it for now. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you all back here next week for a big week coming up. Hopefully we get some positive momentum towards reform, and more importantly, just see onwards and upwards towards the cannabis industry. That's it for our latest TDR Weekly Recap presented by Dutchie. I'm your host, Shad Dales. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.